people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Bumgarner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest as it pertains to former IBF champion Ebony Bridges, who took to her social media and stated, "Can I beat up Astrid Wett on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson? I mean, I'd enjoy it."
Who's Astrid Wett?
One of these are, influencer, misfit kind of boxers. It's that kind of deal. This is not a legitimate fighter, a legitimate pugilist.
Why is Ebony calling her out?
Astrid Wett responded to Ebony Bridges by asking genuinely, "Who is this?" To which Ebony Bridges responded, "Someone that you know very well, who would not only make you piss and shit yourself when you get knocked out by me, because I'd hit you that hard, but also someone that you've probably watched all my fights and made you wet, watching me, so I've then gone and flicked your bean over me and recorded it for your small set of OnlyFans subs. Don't be a pussy like you were with Elle Brooke."
Is this a for real call out? Is she really calling her out?
Ebony continued by saying she wants to be a boxer, but won't fight a real one. That's why.
It's bad optics.
Calling out one of these social media influencer misfit kind of boxers, Ebony Bridges, a former world champion and a fighter who worked hard to change the status quo for women boxers, a fighter who worked hard to legitimize herself in the eyes of her critics. This is sure to get the boo birds going because they're already hypercritical of her. If they see her calling out a social media influencer, won't take them long to start yapping.
Didn't take Nina Hughes, reigning WBA bantamweight champion Nina Hughes, long to chime in. She called it a good 50-50 fight. Smash her up, Astrid.
Know what the pun here is? That Ebony is no more a legitimate boxer than Astrid Wett is. That's what Nina is trying to get across. Ebony responded by saying, "Still commenting on my shit and giving me attention. Bless. Can't forget about me, can you?"
Nina's still probably raw that she never got that Ebony Bridges fight, never got that unification match.
Ebony stated, "I love that Nina still comments on my stuff and gives me attention. Bless her." But is she seriously calling out one of these OnlyFans models, one of these misfit kind of boxers? Because that kind of devalues her public image. A Twitter user that goes by the name Sion Griffith asked, "Eddie's gone quiet with the women's boxing since the Saudi money came in?" To which Ebony responded, "Eddie's offering insults as paydays to women."
Uh-oh.
It's where it gets interesting. It's where you have to ask, is she serious about fighting this Astrid Wett person because she figures she'll make more money fighting an influencer than what Matchroom has been offering her? And what exactly has Matchroom been offering her?
Whatever it is, it's not to her liking.
Twitter user that goes by the name Keir Taylor said, "I wonder how purses were for women before Eddie Hearn started investing in their fights."
What's he trying to say?
That she's ungrateful.
Oh.
We don't know what Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, may or may not have offered Ebony Bridges for a fight. What we do know is that she's not a champion anymore. She doesn't have a belt.
That changes things.
We also know that Ebony Bridges has several outside endeavors outside of the world of boxing, including OnlyFans, that she uses as arms of revenue.
She's probably making good money with that stuff alone.
So because she has those other arms of revenue, she's telling herself, well, I'm not just going to get out there for any amount of money. I'm not just going to get out there for peanuts on the dollar. The problem with that perspective is, the longer you're out, the harder it becomes to come back. And Ebony Bridges, she ain't got all the time in the world. She is in her mid to late 30s.
Well, that might be young for me and you, but that's not young for a boxer.
In a general sense, that's not a young age for a pugilist, a male pugilist, a female pugilist. So if you have to take a hit on the money to get a rebound fight, a bounce back fight, maybe that's what you need to do.
It's what Anthony Joshua did.
Remember, this guy fought something like 3 or 4 times
throughout the course of 11 months. And he had to take a hit on the money in some of those fights when he was supposed to fight Dillian Whyte, but Dillian Whyte tested positive for a banned substance, so he ended up with Robert Helenius. He had to take a hit on the money.
Yeah, but he probably still made a lot of money, at least a lot more than Ebony makes.
It's not the point. The point is, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. Sometimes you have to take that hit because what's the alternative? Calling out OnlyFans models? Doesn't seem to be any rumors or rumblings or fight news in reference to a Miyo-Yoshida rematch or a fight with anybody, really, for Ebony. This is the most we've seen or heard in terms of fight news since she lost her belt to Miyo-Yoshida, and it's not a good look.
I remember last year, Eddie Hearn stated that they were going to be tightening up their budget, and there were going to be people that maybe they don't work with them anymore moving forward.
So many words, what he said was the fighters and their teams, they want to make certain dollar amounts, and Matchroom feels they need to be in certain fights to make those dollar amounts. Now, since then, Nina Hughes has left Matchroom for DeBella Entertainment. Since then, Ebony Bridges has lost her Alphabet title and claims that Matchroom is lowballing her.
That's her side of the story.
What's Matchroom's? What's Eddie Hearns' side of the story? It sounds a lot like Matchroom offered her a dollar amount for a fight, but she didn't like it, so she's sitting out and she's calling out OnlyFans models. That's bad optics. For an actual boxer, an actual pugilist, and a former world champion, it's bad optics.
Even in jest.
Because you know how obtuse the Boo Birds can be and how hypercritical they already are.
They're going to use it as ammunition. You know what they're going to say.
Is this what you are now reduced to now that you ain't got a belt? Calling out OnlyFans models. It just is what it is, I guess, until Matchroom and Ebony can reconcile their differences or until she jumps ship and goes somewhere else.
Nina Hughes did.
Men's junior middleweight news, Tim Tszyu's reaction to Keith Thurman being out injured and Fundora as a late replacement. Tim said, "I'm used to the word quote-unquote pull out Thurman. Charlo, Zarafa, Lubin, and as always, the show goes on. See you all March 30th. The latest seems to indicate that the World Boxing Council is in touch with the PBC over the Thurman withdrawal, and its board is gathering to decide on stamping the Tim Tszyu bout a fight for its vacant junior middleweight title, in addition to Tszyu's WBO.
I mean, it's good. You get 2 titles instead of 1.
You can't be critical over how Tim Tszyu became WBO champion any more than you can be critical over how he might become WBC champion. It's not his fault that Jermell Charlo was quote-unquote injured any more than it's his fault that he decided to move up in weight, leaving him high and dry so he could cash out with Canelo. That's not Tim's fault.
Just like it's not his fault that Keith Thurman is quote-unquote injured as well.
You'd be asking yourself, well, why is the WBC title on the line? And it's because Sebastian Fundora was supposed to be fighting for it against Sergey Bohachuk.
Well, if Sebastian is fighting Tim, who's Sergey fighting?
According to Lance Pugmire, Sergey Bohachuk may be facing Brian Mendoza for the interim title, and the winners will be assigned to fight each other next. The winner of Tszyu versus Fundora and the winner of Bohachuk versus Mendoza.
It's going to be a problem.
WBO President Paco Veracel stated, "The WBO will sanction Tszyu versus Fundora, but the winner must face WBO mandatory challenger within 180 days. Negotiations for WBO mandatory commitment must be started 5 days after the fight. 5 days after the 30th.
So the winner of Tszyu versus Fundora is going to have a WBC mandatory in the queue and a WBO mandatory in the queue.
Well, who's the WBO mandatory?
Ranked at number 1 is Josh Kelly of the United Kingdom. I don't know if he's going to want to do the dance with the winner of Tszyu versus Fundora. Ranked at number 2 is the PBC zone, Erickson Lubricant, who Tim Tszyu was supposed to be fighting.
Remember, before they landed on Keith Thurman, the rumor was he was in negotiations to face Erickson Lubin, and one thing led to another, and Lubin became Thurman.
Ranked at number 3 is Puerto Rico's own Xander Zayas, but he's on the top-ranked side of things.
You see what the problem is. Both the World Boxing Council and the World Boxing Organization have mandatory challengers in the queue, and they're expecting the winner of this fight to satisfy them shortly after.
It's a mess.
The whole thing is, veteran boxing scribe Mike Cope Topinger stated, it's the second consecutive year Tim Tszyu watched as what would represent the most high-profile fight of his career fall by the wayside. Last year, it was Jermell Charlo due to a quote-unquote hand injury. Tszyu fought 3 times rather than wait around. Now, once again, Tszyu acts like a real fighter and takes on a much different opponent on short notice.
Much different is right.
In my previous video, I talked about my suspicions that they may be setting Tim Tszyu up, that you've had him training for Keith Thurman, who is a very different fighter, poses very different challenges to the challenges that Sebastian Fundora will pose.
He's been training for a fighter that he would have had to chase down, cut the ring off.
That's what he's been getting ready for. Now he's facing a fighter, a much bigger fighter, younger fighter.
Guy who's gonna chase him.
Tim won't have to try and find Sebastian Fundora because Sebastian's a close quarters fighter. He's a mid-range to inside fighter, volume puncher, which is very different from what he's been preparing for all these weeks.
And this is what he's in bed with the PBC for? They could not deliver you Jermell Charlo. Now, they couldn't deliver you Keith Thurman.
It seems to me that Tim Tszyu is trying to break away from the domestic market, the Australian market, where he's already a very big name. He's already a superstar. He wants to branch out and he wants to make a splash in America, but I think he's going about it the wrong way with the wrong outfit.
Most of what the PBC plan on doing on Prime seem to be pay-per-views. This fight that he's about to have is a pay-per-view. That's not going to get you much exposure in America because not that many people are going to buy this show.
Where initially Tim Tszyu jumped into bed with the PBC, thinking that he would get a Jermell Charlo fight, that fight is dead. That fight is dead in the water. Jermell's not undisputed anymore. The belts have been redistributed. So now what are you dealing with these people for? Because you want to make it in America? If you want to make it in America, go to Top Rank.
Top Rank airs their fights on the biggest sports network in the country. If the goal is to get maximum exposure in America, then go to them.
After this fight, if you win.
Now, if you want to go global, you want to fight in America, you want to fight in the UK, you want to fight around the world, maybe in Saudi, you go to Matchroom.
Israel Madrimov, newly crowned WBA champion, is over there at Matchroom. And if beyond this Fundora fight, Tim emerges unified champion, he can go to Matchroom to pursue a third alphabet title.
Not just that one, they could probably get him the IBF title as well.
The IBF title that's going to be on the line in the upcoming Jack Kolke versus Bakram Murtazaliev fight in Germany in a few weeks' time. That he's going about this the wrong way. You don't need the PBC to make it in America.
They can barely make it in America.
As far as the fight itself, as stated, this is a very different assignment than what he initially signed up for. Keith Thurman, at his very best, is a moving target that's going to use the ring and try to set you up, try to set traps, so you have to cut off the ring and pin him down, mow him down. Whereas with Sebastian,
bigger guy, much bigger guy, and you don't have to chase him because he'll come to you.
With Sebastian, it's not a question of jabbing your way in safely while cutting off the ring. With Sebastian, it's a question of bent arm punches, catching and shooting out of the high guard, getting off uppercuts up the middle, body shots.
It's a different fight with a very different fighter who's built differently.
You were training for a fighter who's going to stay on his toes, moving around, naturally smaller guy, bit of a slickster, he tries to be. Now you're facing an artillery fighter, an artillery guy.
Catching and shooting is going to have to be the name of the game.
Straight punches and long-range punches would have been what he needed for Keith Thurman, whereas with Sebastian, what he needs are hooks, tight hooks, compact ones, counters, uppercuts, body shots. He's got to get ready for infighting because that's what Sebastian is. He likes to fight on the inside.
Doesn't the same apply to Sebastian?
No. Sebastian, if he has been training for Sergey Bohachuk, that means he's been training to fight a puncher.
Tim is a puncher.
So the difference is somewhat negligible between training for Sergey and training for Tim. But for Tim, there's a glaring difference, a glaring disparity between training for Keith Thurman than having to fight Sebastian Fundora. They're wildly different.
If he gets through this, he needs to jump ship. I don't see a reason for him to stay at the PBC if he wins this fight.
If he picks up the WBC alongside his WBO, he should take it and run. Go somewhere else. There are better people to do business with in America than Al Heyman and his PBC.
Because I still think they're setting him up.
He's got to get out of that place. He's got to get out of there. Men's heavyweight news, you may have heard that Alexander Usyk has recently become the betting favorite over Tyson Fury. Further indication that the spell that everyone's been under, it's beginning to wear off, and the catalyst has been Anthony Joshua's fight with Otto Wallin, his knockout win, I should say, and his more recent knockout win over Francis Ngannou. Those are two fighters, two of them, that Tyson Fury struggled with.
Before and after he beat Deontay Wilder.
Which has given rise to suspicions that Tyson Fury may be in decline. At least that's what Hall of Fame inductee Carl Froch thinks. Carl Froch claims leading heavyweight is declining following Anthony Joshua's knockout win over Francis Ngannou. That's how he chooses to reconcile it, chooses to explain it. Speaking to Boxing Scene, former world super middleweight champion Carl Froch claimed that Joshua's one-sided victory over Ngannou has shown that Fury's on the slide when it comes to his ability inside the ring. Fury must have been having a really bad night, or, like I think, Fury's past his best. He's seen better days.
Could be that, or it could be he was never as good as you guys made him out to be.
You look at him with Ngannou and you say that he's on the slide because he got knocked down or, because he struggled. But he struggled with Otto Wallin years ago. He struggled with him. Was he on the slide then?
And that's before he beat Deontay Wilder 2 times.
Froch continued, I study the sport and I study the fights. And Tyson Fury used to throw 30-plus feints around. Feint, draw his opponent in, feint, double jab, right hand. He's not doing the feints anymore. He's doing 4 or 5 feints. He's slow on his feet. He's been knocked down 5 times in recent years. When you're hitting the floor and you're getting hit on the chin and not throwing feints and not as busy as you used to be, that means you're past your best and you're on the decline and you're on the slide.
Well, it could be the way that Carl says it is. It's not the craziest thing I ever heard.
But maybe it's that it's easier to get a Deontay Wilder to bite on those feints than somebody else.
Than Usyk?
Nuts and bolts boxing. I don't think Fury does anything better than Alexander Usyk in terms of fight mechanics and nuts and bolts boxing. I'll go as far as saying you could conjure up the very best version of Tyson Fury. The one that beat Deontay Wilder. You can call him up.
The best version of Fury still ain't better than today's Usyk. Not to me.
Now, Usyk is a slight favorite over Tyson Fury. A slight favorite. I say a slight favorite because it's not a landslide. It's close to even money, but opinions are starting to shift. People are starting to wake up from this haze they've been under.
Gypsy magic.
What I envision when I think about the fight is that Usyk is going to be slightly faster, getting in punches from different angles that Fury's not used to because he's used to fighters being slower than he is.
Bigger targets.
Bigger than Usyk, who's light on his feet, the same as Fury's light on his feet, maybe lighter, perhaps better. I think he's better.
And he's a southpaw. I don't think Fury likes southpaws.
The Otto Wallin fight, I feel, is evidence of that. He greatly struggled with that fighter.
I feel like Fury's work is going to be messy.
In a very general sense, the quality of Fury's punches and how he gets them off, he kind of just slaps with his punches.
Mixes in some dirty boxing.
Holding and hitting, using elbows, trying to use your weight on the guy, lean on him. I don't expect any of that stuff to work because it doesn't make for clean blows, clean scoring blows.
Where I expect Usyk to hit him and hit him clean.
Playing at the angles while he does it, making him work all the while, draining his energy reserves. Fury, none the wiser.
The tension that Usyk creates in a fight is physically taxing, just trying to keep up with him, keep on him,
or keep him off.
There's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything costs something. Every action you take or don't take under the hot lights.
I think Usyk's gonna beat him, and apparently people are starting to share in that opinion, which is why Fury's a slight underdog.
With the bookies.